So this isn't the type of video I'd normally make, but when the very foundation of what I do is attacked by some of the most powerful people in the world, I kind of feel like I should talk about it. So Trump has been up to an awful lot ever since being elected. You may have heard about a thing or 10 that he's done, but I'm not here to talk about the ramifications he's having on the entire world, just the ramifications he's having on one particular world, my world, the world of science. Right now, researchers across the United States have been hit by several executive orders, legal or otherwise, including layoffs at NASA, the National Science Foundation, and the NIH, the National Institute of Health. In case you don't know, the NIH provides funding for research placements, scholarships, and much more. This helps researchers and graduate students get the funding required to conduct research, learn how to research, and pay rent, among other things. So basically, he's cut national funding for research across the board. Trump also barred NASA scientists from attending the most recent UN climate change conference because he wants to deny climate change. And he mischaracterized an experiment about transgenic mice into an experiment about turning mice transgender. Obviously, all of this is terrible. On a macro scale, he is trying to spread misinformation in order to control the people and make them think science is useless, which will result in damage to our planet, both socially and ecologically. But I'm actually not here to get into that stuff. I wanted to talk about this in a much more personal perspective. As a bit of background, I consider myself a scientist. I double majored in biology and psychology, I've made tons of science videos on this channel, and I am a researcher. Well, I'm trying to be a researcher. See, I'm starting my PhD this year, which means for the past year I've been applying to different graduate schools. This is a long, drawn-out process involving looking into programs and supervisors at multiple schools, preparing a bunch of information and necessary documents, realizing that my information and documents were not up to date and that I have to update them, filling in numerous applications that are super long for no reason, getting on my hands and knees to beg for reference letters, and then sitting around and waiting for the very real chance that all of that was for nothing. Oh, and also every application cost $100, just because. Then what happened for me was I got accepted into one school, but I was waiting for a response from another school that I wanted to go to slightly more. But the deadline that the first school gave me to accept their offer was earlier than the second school ever responded, and so I had to beg for an extension from this school and then beg for an update from this school several times. It was a mess. It was a stress. I'm very glad it's over, and very fortunate to have been accepted. So you can imagine if the school that I was planning on attending now were to email me telling me that they've rescinded my application because of funding cuts from the government, that would probably be my worst nightmare. And yeah, people in the US are currently living in my nightmare. Here's a letter that was sent out to applicants at Duke University last week. Due to the recent unforeseen challenges presented by the loss of funding for biomedical and academic research, Duke University faces significant difficulties in securing external funding to support doctoral research opportunities, including in the areas of research that you plan to study. Without that external funding, Duke will not have those same research opportunities available. We therefore sincerely regret to inform you that we must rescind your offer of admission for the fall 2025 term. Here's an email from the University of Wisconsin basically saying the same thing, and here's a letter from UMass Biomedical rescinding every single offer. So I guess that's just an entire program and career path just gone now. You can find dozens of posts on the grad admissions subreddit right now of people being rejected or losing their acceptance because of their programs having funding cut by the Trump administration's recent actions. You can also find that many international graduate students are being detained by ICE for speaking up about human rights, or just being wrongly detained for racism reasons, which is awesome. It's absolutely heart-wrenching and so unfair to some of the brightest minds in the world to have to be going through this. After all their hard work preparing applications, which also involves work and school and volunteering for the past several years, it all gets ruined like that. And now, so many people need to figure out what they're going to do for the next year, like to survive, because a lot of graduate programs help pay for your living expenses, and on top of that, they'll have to reapply to places next year, probably outside of the country this time. Did they also just lose the hundreds of dollars they spent on application fees? I hope everyone got refunds, but I honestly doubt that. I keep thinking, like, what if this were me? What would I even do? I would cry, I guess. Now, I am Canadian, which means this has a much lower chance of affecting me than my American colleagues. But The threat of this is still felt. For one, now this is a precedent that has been set. With Canada's federal election coming up in just a few weeks, I'm scared because it feels like anything can just happen now when a new leader of the country is elected. Not to mention that Trump is currently threatening to forcefully absorb my country, which means all of these issues are right on my doorstep, which is terrifying. But most pertinently, research is an international collaboration. America has provided jobs for tons of international researchers. American researchers do studies together with others outside of their country all the time, and a bunch of research conferences are held there. I even almost applied to graduate programs in the US, and I'm very grateful that I decided not to. Also, for as long as I've been alive, the US has been the world leader in high-quality scientific publications. Publications that I read, try to learn from, and then expand upon. With all of that out the window, the progress of science internationally will take a hit. And in turn, the progress of humanity as a whole will be slowed. And this will result in a worldwide decline in scientific understanding. As if the misinformation and anti-science rhetoric on TikTok and Twitter wasn't enough. The ramifications of all of this are severe. Trump wants to silence science in order to selectively spout misinformation to get what he wants. And what he wants in this regard is actively harmful to the people, to science understanding, and to the world. On top of this all, Trump has recently cut back on the Department of Education, so kids in public elementary and high schools are going to have much less support. His whole argument is that the US spends the most in the world on education, only to have lackluster academic scores compared to other countries, so he just thinks the whole thing is a waste of money. But the countries like Denmark and China that he's comparing them to have radically different educational systems and educational philosophies. If you want to improve academic scores, you have to reform the system, not shut it off. Reallocate the funds for developing a better system instead of reallocating them to go build nuclear warheads or go golfing or whatever. So it looks like it's not just higher education getting the boot, but education as a whole. And it's genuinely so infuriating to see all of this happen. But it's happening. So what can we do about this? Well, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if anything can be done, but the first step would be to stay aware. I'm gonna link a nice resource called the Silencing Science Tracker, which comes straight from Trump's arch nemesis, Columbia University. It's a comprehensive list of anti-science government policies intended to restrict or prohibit research, education, and discussion of scientific information ever since Trump's first administration. The next, I guess, would be to spread the word. With all the chaos going on, it's easy to overlook the war on science because it's not really one of the spotlighted issues most of the time. Also, the general population isn't going to notice the immediate effects of this like they will with tariffs and stuff. But this will result in long-term rippling consequences that I think more people need to be aware of. There have been a few initiatives like Stand Up for Science, which held a protest in DC to speak up about all this. Bill Nye was there, which is cool, but honestly I feel like no one even heard about this. I also don't really know how effective protests are anymore. I don't know how safe they are to do anymore, and I'm not fully convinced that all of this madness that I've been ranting about for the past 10 minutes isn't what people want. I mean, this is what people voted for, and this is what people didn't show up to vote against. And I already know in a few weeks when our federal election happens, we're gonna have a voter turnout problem as well. Though maybe this time with everything going on, it'll be different. We'll see. Science is the cornerstone to human progress and innovation. It has nothing to do with where you fall on a political spectrum, because it's so much more fundamental and universal than that. It should be above petty politics and megalomania and corporate greed. I want to end with an excerpt from Carl Sagan. This was 30 years ago. "We've arranged a society on science and technology in which nobody understands anything about science and technology, and this combustible mixture of ignorance and power sooner or later is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? Science is more than a body of knowledge, it's a way of thinking. If we're not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan politician or religious leader who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson laid great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they have to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government runs us." So yeah, Anyways, that's it. Sorry if I came off a little preachy, or if the fact that I'm Canadian talking about all this rubs you the wrong way. I've just seen so many people in the same field and life stage as me have their lives ruined these past few months. So I normally make deep dives into topics in evolution and ecology, so if you want to check that out, feel free. And if you have similar feelings towards all this as I do, or have been personally affected here, please leave a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts and experience. And if you disagree with anything I said, I would love to hear why as well. Science is about hearing out all the sides, not silencing the ones you don't like. Okay, have a good day, everyone. Good luck.